Well, good morning from Cottage Farmstead. I'm Rebecca. My husband Nathan will be back shortly getting some fuel for the tractor. It is an unseasonably cool morning here in June for us. That's why we got our flannel out. I think Farmer Nathan had a sweatshirt on earlier because it was in the 50s, which is very cold for us in the summer. Behind me, you can kind of see a bit of a mess back there, and that's actually what we're going to be working on today. So my dad's sawmill was sitting there for several months now, probably about 6 months. And they'd been milling a lot of wood there, but the plan was to move that into its own shed eventually, and that finally got finished the last couple of weeks. And so we're going to turn that area where all that sawdust is into our compost facility. But in order to be able to get to building our compost piles here, we do need to clean it up. So that's what we're going to be working on today, and then hopefully be able to get one of our first piles started. To my right here, you can see the pile of some of the sawmill cutoffs. Some of them are still useful boards, even though they're a little short. We can still trim them up on the table saw and have some usable lumber for projects around the homestead. And then further around here, we have all of the bark cutoffs and the sawdust from the sawmill. And we're going to be using this in building one of our compost piles. So we have chicken litter from a neighbor's large commercial chicken barn, so that we're going to mix with the sawdust so that we can get the nitrogen and carbon ratio going, so we can have a pile cooking away so that we have compost to add to our garden in the fall. So we've actually already been composting in this corner already. We made a video shortly after we moved in, and I'll link that above and down below, of when we just started our compost pile over here. And we just dumped chicken scraps. We've been dumping our wood ash in a pile next to it over here, and then we're also putting any of the chick bedding that we had from when the chicks were living inside, been dumping that over in here as well. So we're going to be adding this into our 3-bay compost system as well, and getting it into some neater piles using some pallets. And then we'll also be adding some of the potash as well as a little bit of extra potassium in our compost. But first up is getting all this stuff and junk cleared up and trimming up the trees a little bit through here. We just tossed a lot of things when we moved in, like our bird bath and some extra buckets and pots and a watering can, obviously. So we have some work to do to get this cleared out before we can get our pallets set up for our compost bin system. Farmer Nathan's back with gasoline. So as you can see, it is looking loads better back there now that we've gotten a lot of the greenbrier and a lot of the trees trimmed up. We did take out a young oak that was kind of in the middle of where we wanted the bays to be, so we got rid of that little sapling. And then while we were trimming, we're like, you know what? We probably should take out that dead pine tree right there. So Farmer Nathan's getting our larger chainsaw. We're going to be felling that one before we build our compost bays. So we got our space cleared out back here. You see Nathan back there with the tape measure. So we're planning on making 3 bays, but we want to make them wide enough so that we can get the tractor bucket in there. So it's going to be a little bit wider than a standard pallet because the tractor bucket's about 5 feet wide. So we got 16 feet, right, back there? So that'll give us enough space to have a little bit of space on each side in the bay to get the tractor bucket in there to make turning and moving the compost so much easier. So we've been collecting pallets for the last 2 months or so. We got some of these from a local grocery store. Some of them came from deliveries that went to Grand Green Family Farms. And then sometimes like Azure delivery drivers have extra pallets on hand. So we've just been collecting these. So we should have enough to get at least a couple of our bays set up today. Well, we got all 3 bays set up. We had to add a little sliver on the end because we were just a few inches short from having it fit the tractor. So now it should fit the tractor in all 3 bays. So that'll allow us to turn it and get the compost into our garden a whole lot easier. So with these piles, we're going to mimic Charles Dowding's method and use cardboard on the sides of our pallet bays. So we're going to go raid our cardboard pile and get that going. So like I mentioned earlier, I will link above and below to our first compost video this year where we were just getting a pile started. 3 bays is like a step up from what we started with, because you really just need a pile on the ground outside, a place designated to dump your kitchen scraps and garden waste in. Having this 3-bay system is going to enable us to make more compost, as we're able to fill them up and turn them over and help them get hotter than a pile that kind of spreads out on the ground. So it'll hopefully get more of the weed seeds and disease and that out of it, because it'll be able to heat up a bit more. All right, we are about halfway full, I suppose, on our first bay here. We ended up not having as much sawdust as we thought we were when we started digging it up, and we hit the clay layer much sooner than we thought, so it'll take us a little bit longer to fill this up. We are putting some of the chicken manure from neighboring commercial chicken barn in here, and some of the sawdust, and then we will be getting some of the green waste from Growing Green Family Farms, and hopefully someone will deliver wood chips. We have a request out on Chip Drop online, but so far no one has brought us wood chips, and they were trimming trees recently and they still didn't bring us wood chips, so hopefully we'll get some too to have more brown matter. But for now, we'll wrap it up here and we'll catch you next time.